I find myself triple-checking locks now, every single time. It's a small thing, but not something I used to do. It started after a business trip a few years back, a conference in a coastal city during the off-season. The hotel was pleasant, if a little too eager to please, and I was given a room far nicer than I'd booked. It's the quietness of that place that really sticks with me, even now. The conference was fine, honestly, pretty standard. Lots of presentations about optimizing workflow, and networking lunches where everyone talked about how busy they were. I mostly just wanted a quiet place to work in the evenings, and the hotel was perfect for that. Really, it was too perfect. That's what keeps sticking with me, I think. Check-in was smooth, almost unsettlingly so. The woman at the desk, Pearl, her name tag said was friendly enough, but she spent an awfully long time looking at my itinerary, not just confirming dates, but studying them. She lingered over a trip I took to Boston 5 years ago, then another to Seattle the year before that, just tracing the dates with her finger. I remember thinking she was probably new, maybe trying to memorize common destinations for guest recommendations. I even offered a little joke about being a frequent flyer, and she smiled, a little too brightly, and handed me the key card. "Enjoy your upgraded room, mister." She paused, glancing back at the screen. Jerome. The room was huge, corner suite, overlooking the water. A bottle of sparkling cider chilled on ice. Completely unnecessary, but who am I to complain? I unpacked, set up my laptop on the desk, and ordered room service. Pasta, nothing fancy. Later, when I went to get ice, I saw Pearl again, talking to a man in a dark suit. She wasn't smiling anymore. She looked intense, pointing at something on a tablet. When she saw me, she quickly looked away, and the man followed her gaze, just for a second. He didn't smile either. It was probably nothing. They were likely discussing a difficult guest or a problem with the hotel. Still, something felt off, like I was being assessed. The music box, I kept turning it over and over. It was identical to the one I lost at my grandmother's in Boston. Same chipped rosewood, same tiny ballerina that spun a little too fast. It wasn't a common piece. I remembered being devastated when I lost it. I'd searched everywhere. My grandmother had tried to replace it, but it wasn't the same. It just wasn't. I tried to think, maybe someone at the hotel collected antiques. Maybe they'd bought a job lot and hadn't cataloged everything. It felt flimsy, but it was the only thing that made sense. I left it on the desk and went down to the bar for a drink. I needed to clear my head. When I got back to my room, the music box wasn't on the desk anymore. It was on the bedside table. I distinctly remember leaving it in the center of the desk. I checked the door. It was locked, with no sign of forced entry. The window was closed, the latch secure. It had to be the cleaning staff. They must have moved it while tidying up. Annoying, but explainable. I went to bed, but couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the image of the music box, then remembering where I'd left it, then where I found it. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound. Not a loud sound, more of a scraping, like something was dragging against the wall in the hallway. I lay there listening. It stopped, then started again, a little closer this time. It sounded like it was moving towards my door. I got up and peeked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but the scraping started again. Only this time it was inside the wall, directly behind the headboard. It wasn't a consistent scrape, more like a shifting, a settling, like something was trying to get loose. I checked the door again, then the window. Everything was still locked. I told myself it was the old building settling. That's what it had to be. Old buildings do that, right? But I didn't believe it. Not anymore. I started packing my bag. I'd check out first thing in the morning. I didn't care about the conference. I just wanted to leave. I was throwing clothes into the bag, not even folding them, just shoving. The scraping was louder now, a definite rhythm, like someone was testing the plaster. It wasn't settling, it was deliberate. I glanced at the door again, locked. I grabbed my phone, started to dial 911, then stopped. What was I going to tell them? There's something scratching in the wall. They'd think I was drunk or worse. Then the headboard started to vibrate. A low thrumming, like a subwoofer turned up too high. I froze. It wasn't subtle anymore. The plaster cracked. a spider web of white against the dark wood. I backed away, knocking over the chair. It clattered to the floor, but I didn't even register it. A section of the wall, maybe 1 foot square, popped inward. Not exploded, but yielded, like cardboard, and behind it darkness. Not just the darkness of the wall cavity, but something deeper, something that absorbed the light. A hand reached out, pale, long fingers. It wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. I didn't think, I just reacted. I dove for the window, fumbled with the latch. It was stuck. Rust, probably. I yanked, and it finally gave, sending the glass pane crashing to the floor. The cold night air rushed in, and for a split second, the hand retreated. I scrambled out, cutting myself on the broken glass. Didn't even feel it. I landed on the narrow ledge outside, clinging to the brick. Below me, the streetlights blurred. Above, I could still see into the room. The hole in the wall was widening, and Pearl was standing there, just watching. She didn't seem surprised. She didn't call for help. She just stood there, a small, knowing smile on her face. It wasn't about the building. It wasn't random. She knew. She'd been expecting me to react like this. It was like she'd set a trap. I had to get down now. The cold was the first thing I registered, soaking through my shirt. The street was quiet, mostly. A couple of early risers were walking dogs, not looking up. I told the first officer who arrived I'd broken into the room. It sounded better that way, less crazy. He kept glancing at the window, then at me, like he was calculating the easiest way to section me. They let me back into the room with him. It was worse in the daylight. The hole in the wall wasn't small. It was deliberate, like someone had been working at it for a while, slowly chipping away at the plaster, and the dust was everywhere. The officer, a young guy named Jerome, kept muttering about structural issues in old buildings. He shone his flashlight into the cavity. Nothing, just insulation and darkness. "Looks like a bad dream, sir," he said finally, adjusting his cap. "Stress from the conference, maybe?" I pointed to the music box, still sitting on the nightstand, its tiny ballerina frozen mid-twirl. That wasn't a dream, and someone was in the wall. He examined it, winding it up. The tinkling melody felt wrong. He shrugged. Old building, settling, pipes, animals maybe. They took photos of the window, the wall, and the music box. A report was filed. I gave a statement. It felt performative, like I was acting out a story I didn't understand. I kept thinking about Pearl, her face, that smile. She'd been at the registration desk when I checked in. She remembered my name. I thought, maybe it was her. A prank. A really messed up prank. Maybe she'd been renovating the room and it got out of hand. Maybe she'd been trying to scare me and it escalated. It didn't explain the feeling of being watched, though. It didn't explain why, even now, sitting in the hotel lobby waiting for my things, I felt like every shadow held a pair of eyes. Jerome gave me a card. "If you remember anything else," he said, "don't hesitate to call." I doubted I would. What was there to remember except a growing certainty that I wasn't crazy, and whatever had happened in that room wasn't over? It's been years, I think. Hard to say exactly. Time gets slippery when you start cataloging things like that. I haven't stayed in a hotel since. Not a single one, not even for one night. It sounds ridiculous, I know, like a phobia, but it's not the fear exactly. It's the expectation, the waiting for something to be off. I tried to rationalize it for a long time. I thought maybe it was the travel itself, the disruption of routine. But it wasn't. I realized that after I started noticing little things, a misplaced object in my apartment, a book I didn't remember buying, emails in my spam folder from addresses that looked familiar but weren't quite right. I started checking locks obsessively. Not just the door, but windows, cupboards. I even put a security camera inside my apartment, facing the living room, just to see. Nothing ever happened, of course. It felt pathetic, but I couldn't stop. I kept thinking about Pearl, about her knowing my name. I convinced myself it was connected to Kurt. He'd been involved with that hotel group once, a long time ago. Some investment thing, maybe it was just a coincidence, a very unsettling coincidence. I even looked up Kurt. He is doing well, living in Florida, married, he seems normal. But I still do it. Every time I leave my apartment, I walk back to the door and check the deadbolt. Twice. Even if I just stepped out to get the mail. It's automatic now. A small, cold hand tightening around my chest with each click. And sometimes, when it's quiet, I wonder if it was ever about the room at all. It's strange revisiting this now, honestly. Life moved on. I got a new car, a different job, things settled into a routine. But I found myself thinking about that trip a lot recently and realized I never actually wrote it down. Not really. It felt contained, I guess. Easier to leave it as a memory than to unpack everything. So here I am, finally trying to get it straight, before it fades completely. The chipped mug warmed my hands. I was getting good at the rhythm of mornings here. Coffee, emails, the gray ocean swallowing the horizon. Bia had good taste, even if everything felt a little preserved, like stepping into a photograph. I'd finished most of the unpacking. Just a few boxes left in the spare room, mostly books. Dex had been odd with the groceries. I kept thinking about it. It wasn't hostile, not even rude, just precise. Like he was building something with the cans and boxes, a little tower of perfectly balanced weight. I figured he was maybe a bit of a perfectionist, which, okay, fine, people are weird. I scrolled through Yelp, looking for a decent diner. Everything was either closed for the season or had one-star reviews. Then I remembered the motel just south of town, the Sea Breeze. I'd driven past it a couple times. It looked tired. But maybe they had a restaurant. I called. A man answered immediately. Sea Breeze, Walt speaking. His voice was smooth, almost too smooth. Hi, I'm staying at Bia Hemlock's place up on the bluff. Just wondering if your restaurant is open for breakfast. We are always open for our guests, and for anyone passing through. Are you new in town? Just house-sitting for a friend. Ah, Bia, lovely woman. We get a lot of folks coming through for Bia's place. It's a landmark, you know. I'm happy to have the business. Come on down. I'll save you a booth. He sounded eager, a little too friendly. Maybe he was just lonely. Small towns, right? Everyone knows everyone. I told him I'd see him in a few minutes. It felt nice, actually. A little human connection after days of just the laptop and the waves. I decided to walk. The air smelled like salt and something else, something sweet, like overripe fruit. I sat in the booth, and Walt brought the coffee right away. It was good, surprisingly. Thick, like they used chicory or something. He kept hovering, though, not in a creepy way exactly, more attentive, like he was waiting for me to say something, to need something. He mentioned Bay, the woman who owned the house I was watching. He said she used to come here all the time with her husband, Harvey. He said they were good people. He knew them both well. Too well, maybe? It felt like he was building something with these little details, constructing a connection. The music box was still going, that tinny, warped tune. I asked him about it again. He shrugged, said he hadn't even noticed it, but he looked right at it when he said it. I noticed a small wooden bird perched on the counter near the music box. I hadn't seen it before. It was painted a chipped pale blue. Walking back to the house, I took the beach route. It was longer, but I don't know. The smell was stronger there, that sickly sweet perfume, and I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye near the dunes. A flash of color, like a jacket. I stopped and squinted. Nothing, probably just a trick of the light, a bird. But when I got back to the house, the front door was unlocked. I always locked it. I was certain, and on the kitchen table there was a single pale blue feather, exactly the same shade as the bird in the diner. I figured maybe Bia had been back, checking on things, and forgotten to lock up. Maybe she'd brought a little souvenir from the motel. It was a strange coincidence, sure, but it made sense a little. I locked the door and double-checked it this time. Everything felt off, like I'd walked into someone else's story. I tried to shake it off. The feather, the unlocked door. Just nerves. I told myself, small-town vibes getting to me. I went for a walk along the beach, trying to breathe in the salt air. but even that smelled sweet. Like the diner. It was faint, but it was there. Like overripe fruit, almost cloying. I passed the motel on the way back, and Bia was outside, meticulously sweeping the walkway even though it was spotless. She waved, a little too enthusiastically, and I forced a smile back. Then I saw Walt. He was carrying a toolbox towards my house. My stomach dropped. What was he doing? Maybe Bia asked him to fix something, but why didn't she mention it? I started walking faster, almost running. I rounded the corner and saw him letting himself in with a key. A key. I hadn't given anyone a key. "Walt?" I called out, trying to sound casual. "Everything all right?" He turned, that same unsettlingly pleasant smile on his face. "Just a little something for you, Vince. B thought you might appreciate a new smoke detector. The old one was acting up." He was holding a small, silver box, not a smoke detector, and he was standing in my living room. I didn't know the smoke detector was broken," I stammered. "Oh, it was subtle," he said, stepping closer. "But B is very attentive. She wants her guests to be comfortable, safe." He started fiddling with the silver box. It wasn't a smoke detector, it was a music box. The same warped melody started to play, tinny and unsettling. And then he said so calmly, "She also mentioned you like fresh flowers." He was holding a small vase filled with pale blue feathers. That's when I ran. I just turned and bolted, stumbling back out the door. He didn't chase me, didn't say a word. Just stood there, the music box tinkling, surrounded by those feathers. I didn't stop running until I was back at the diner, practically shoving my way inside. Petra was behind the counter, looking at me strangely. "You okay, Vince?" I just nodded, breathless. I need to leave now." As I was fumbling for my keys, I noticed a small, pale blue feather stuck to my jacket. I brushed it off, but the sweetness in the air seemed to follow me out the door. Bia was standing across the street, watching me, smiling, and Walt was nowhere to be seen. I drove straight to the police station. It was still dark, but starting to lighten. I just laid it all out. The man coming to the house, the gifts, the feathers, Bia watching from across the street. They took notes. A young officer, Vince, kept looking at me like I was making it up. I could tell. He asked about forcing entry, and I said no. I let him in. That felt bad, saying that out loud, like I'd invited the whole thing. They sent a patrol car back to the house with me. It felt ridiculous, like a movie. The house looked normal in the daylight, too normal. The officer, a woman named Petra, did a quick walkthrough. She found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no extra footprints, just clean, except for a single pale blue feather on the living room rug. She bagged it. "Could be anything," she said, but she was looking at me. I kept thinking about the music box. I remembered now. It wasn't playing a tune I recognized. It was distorted, like a record skipping, but slower, deliberate. I told Petra about it. She made a note. Then we went looking for Walt. The motel was closed. A handwritten sign on the door said, "Back in 1 hour." Petra tried the door. It was unlocked. She called out, "Police," but there was no answer. The place was unsettlingly neat, like a stage set. I thought maybe he's just a really meticulous housekeeper. Maybe he's embarrassed about the state of the motel. Maybe this is all just a misunderstanding. But then I saw it. In the office, on the counter, a small, identical vase, filled with pale blue feathers, and a faint, sweet smell. The same smell as in my house. Petra didn't notice it. I didn't point it out. I just felt cold, like someone had opened a window in the middle of summer. It's been years, 6 or 7 years. I still drive a different route to avoid Route 16. Not because I'm afraid. Exactly. It's just unnecessary. I used to enjoy those long stretches of highway, the quiet. Now, any stretch of highway that reminds me of that one feels wrong. They didn't find Walt. Not really. A few things turned up. A truck stop receipt in another state. A blurry security camera image. Nothing concrete. Petra kept digging. Bless her. She thought maybe he was using an alias, running from something. I think she hoped it was something simple, like debt. She wanted it to be explainable. I wanted that too. I sold the samples and got a new territory. I avoided motels. I stayed with family, drove straight through. Whatever it took. B.A. my wife, she tried to understand. He was just a lonely man, Harvey, she'd say, trying to connect. I wanted to believe that. It made it smaller, easier to swallow. I haven't thought about the feathers in a long time. Not consciously. But I don't buy cut flowers anymore. It feels wasteful. I used to bring Bea roses every Friday. She liked that. Now, I just don't. The strangest thing is, sometimes I'll be unpacking groceries and there it is, that smell. Not strong, just a ghost of it. Sweet like overripe pears. I always check the produce, I check everything. It's never anything. But it's there for a second, just a whiff, and then it's gone. This morning it was on a tangerine. I peeled it, expecting I don't know what. Nothing was there, just the tangerine, but the smell lingered, and a single pale blue feather was stuck to the rind. I haven't told anyone about this, not really. It's just sat with me for a long time, and I realized keeping it to myself wasn't helping. It started with a trip, one of many for work, and a simple request at the front desk. I rely on people to handle these little details when I travel, and usually it's no problem at all. But this time felt different, and I need to put that feeling somewhere. The meeting went late, as they usually did with Lyle. He really had a knack for going down rabbit holes with the quarterly reports. By the time I got back to the hotel, it was 10. I just wanted a quick shower and to crash. I'd booked a car through the hotel concierge for 6 a.m. It seemed easier than messing with apps. When I came down, Vera was still at the desk. She looked even more exhausted than before. I handed her my keycard. Just confirming the car for 6 a.m., please. She didn't type anything, just looked at me. A long look. Then she said, "Already taken care of. Mr. Hemlock. Sedan, right? Driver's been notified." That was odd. I distinctly remember asking to book it, and she'd been on the phone when I walked up before. It hadn't even seemed possible. Oh, right. Thanks. I figured maybe she'd anticipated needing to arrange it while I was at dinner. Some hotels do that, try to be proactive. But then she smiled. Not a friendly smile, it didn't reach her eyes. And she added, very softly, "I always make sure our guests are comfortable." It was the way she said comfortable that got to me. It felt loaded. I just nodded and went outside, waiting for the taxi. I checked my email. A new message from the hotel. It wasn't a confirmation exactly, it was a welcome packet. Full of local restaurant recommendations, things to do. I hadn't requested any of that, and attached were 3 photos, all seemingly taken from a distance of me. One walking to the meeting earlier, one having dinner, and one just now, entering the lobby. Each had a little handwritten note below it. "Enjoying your stay?" the latest one read. That's when I started feeling uneasy. Maybe someone was just messing with the system. A prank? But how did they get those photos so quickly? I didn't sleep well. Every creak of the hotel seemed deliberate. I told myself it was just the old building settling, but I kept the lights on. In the morning, I skipped the hotel breakfast. It felt too exposed. I just grabbed a coffee from the little place across the street, trying to look busy with emails. Then I saw her, Vera. She was standing near the curb, talking to a man in a dark sedan. She turned, and our eyes met. She didn't smile. She didn't even look surprised to see me, just knowing. It was quick, but it felt like she'd been watching me walk over. I hurried back to the hotel, a knot forming in my stomach. I needed to get to my meeting. But when I checked the hotel message light, there was a new message. It was from the concierge. "Just confirming your car service for this afternoon, Mr. Hayes. Kay will be picking you up at 3 o'clock. She's aware of your preferences from yesterday." Kay? I hadn't spoken to anyone named Kay. I hadn't expressed any preferences to anyone. I called the front desk. Yes, Kay is our most experienced driver. Vera recommended her. knowing your schedule is tight. Vera again, it was unsettling. I thought maybe she was just being overly efficient, trying to impress management, a little eager to please. I decided to take a different route to the meeting, cutting through the park instead of walking along the main road. I wanted to see if anyone was following me, and that's when I noticed it. A small silver car parked a block behind me for the entire length of my walk. It wasn't Kay's car. I'd looked up the car service online. It wasn't Vera's either, just a car. I kept walking faster now. I tried to look like I was on a phone call even though I wasn't. The silver car started moving too, slowly, maintaining the distance. It wasn't speeding up. It wasn't trying to box me in. Just there. It was the lack of aggression that was getting to me. It felt calculated, like a predator letting you think you have a chance. I decided to head for the train station. It was further out of my way, but there were always people around, and the trains ran frequently. I called Kay's service again, left another message, barely able to keep my voice steady. There was no answer. As I neared the station, I saw her. Vera. She was standing near the ticket machines, looking expectant. She saw me too, and her face just smoothed out. Not a smile, not a frown, just blank. She started walking towards me. Then, the car. It pulled up right beside us, engine idling. The window rolled down just a crack, and I could see a hand. Not the driver's, but resting on the armrest, a woman's hand, pale, with chipped dark nail polish. Vera stopped a few feet away. "Having trouble with your transportation, sir?" she asked, her voice sickeningly sweet. That's when a man, a big guy, Lyle, I remembered from the hotel bar, stepped out from behind the ticket machine. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Vera. They exchanged a quick, almost imperceptible nod. Lyle started moving toward the silver car. I bolted. I didn't think. I just ran, barging past people, heading for the platform. Maybe Lyle was security, finally intervening. Maybe Vera had called for help. I didn't wait to find out. I jumped onto the train just as the doors were closing. I looked back. Lyle was talking to the driver of the silver car, his back to me. Vera was gone. On the platform, I noticed my briefcase was gone. I hadn't even realized I'd set it down, just for a second, while I was looking at Vera. It had everything: my laptop, the presentation, my passport, and a small antique music box my grandmother gave me. I hadn't even thought about that box in years. The train pulled into Birmingham New Street, and I just walked. I didn't even think about a taxi. I just kept walking, trying to remember exactly what was in that briefcase. The presentation wasn't the problem. I could recreate that. It was the music box. My grandmother, she always said it held memories. Stupid, I know, to be upset about a thing when I'd just lost everything for the Henderson deal. I ended up at a small hotel, a place I'd never used before. I figured staying put, waiting for the police to maybe find something, was better than going back to the city center. The desk clerk, a woman named Nell, was nice enough, though she kept glancing at my hands, like she was looking for something. I checked in, went straight to the room, and called the police. They took a report and sounded unenthusiastic. They said they'd check with the station security. That evening, I was scrolling through news sites, trying to distract myself when I saw it. A small article, buried on page 7, data brokerage firm targeted in cyber attack. The firm, Omnidata, specialized in lifestyle enrichment data, whatever that meant. Below that was a photo of their CEO, Lyle, the guy from the bar. Suddenly Vera, the pale hands, the car appearing at the same time, it clicked. She wasn't waiting for me. She was reporting, like a spotter. Lyle was using this data firm to track people. People like me. Maybe Henderson had gotten crosswise with someone, a competitor. It made a twisted kind of sense. I felt a small surge of relief, actually. It wasn't personal, it was business. Then the phone rang. It was Bev from Henderson's office. Her voice was tight. "They've pulled the deal, completely. They said there were concerns, security concerns. And, Mr. Davies, they asked about your travel arrangements, specifically if you'd used any car services." The police were polite. They took my statement. They asked a lot about Vera, about Lyle and his firm, and about the briefcase. They dusted the hotel room but found nothing. Bev called a couple of times, wringing her hands over the lost deal. Henderson himself called, with bland concern and corporate speak. It felt like everyone was performing a role, and I was the prop. I went home early. I took 1 week off, claiming burnout. My wife, Irene, noticed I flinched whenever a car slowed near the house. I told her it was just stress. She probably didn't believe me. I started taking different routes to work and varying my schedule. It felt ridiculous and paranoid. But the feeling, it was like being watched, not in a dramatic way, but like someone was cataloging my movements. I started to think maybe it was personal. Lyle, with his cool composure, had seemed interested, not in the deal, but in me. Maybe I'd inadvertently offended him somehow, rejected an advance. I rack my brain trying to remember any offhand comment, any slight. It's a pathetic exercise. Then came the flowers. White lilies were delivered to our house. There was no card, just lilies. Irene loved lilies. I felt a coldness bloom in my chest. It wasn't about the deal, or Lyle's company, or even the briefcase. It was something else, something focused. I haven't taken a taxi since, not even for short trips. It's stupid, I know, but the thought of someone knowing where I'm going, before I even get there, it still gets to me. Just now, walking to the corner store, I heard a car door chime, a high, melodic little tone. For a second, I was sure it was familiar. Then I realized it was the ice cream truck. But for that one beat, everything felt wrong.